Welcome to another STEM tutorial. In today's video, we'll be using our knowledge of mathematical operations and variables in Python to write our first simple piece of code. To make the most of this tutorial, we recommend that you open the Spyder program from Anaconda to follow along. So once you've opened Spyder, we'll recall that this section of our screen is referred to as our editor, and we'll be focusing on this area for today's programming tutorial. So to get started, the first thing you're going to want to do is likely create a new file by clicking on this button. I won't do it since I already have a new file ready to go. So once you've opened a new file, then you can save it by clicking this icon here to save it wherever you'd like to on your computer. In today's example, we're simply going to convert degrees Celsius to degrees Fahrenheit. So this is just to introduce you a bit to the workspace and typing some lines of code so that you can use it for some calculations. So to get started, what we'd like to do is just define some temperature in degrees Celsius that we'd like to convert to degrees Fahrenheit. So again, we'd like to define a variable. Here I'll say my temperature in degrees Celsius. So I'll call this variable _T_C. You can call it whatever you like. One word of warning though, if you make this all capital letters, it may be that your variable will not appear in this variable explorer because of a setting in Spyder. So if you click on your preferences and go to your variable explorer, if you have exclude all uppercase references checked, like what I do here, an uppercase T_C will not appear in your variable explorer. So if you do want to use all capital letters here, then you would have to uncheck this box. So this was just a little sidetrack to let you know where you have to look in case you don't have your variables showing here. And we'll go back to calling our temperature in degrees Celsius that we'd like to convert to degrees Fahrenheit as 20 degrees Celsius. And now all we simply have to do is we have to type the equation to convert from degrees Celsius to degrees Fahrenheit. So we're going to define a new variable. I'll call it T_F, so our temperature in degrees Fahrenheit. And all I'm going to do is simply type the equation to convert degrees Celsius to Fahrenheit. If you look in your textbook or online, that you'll see that the equation simply is your temperature in degrees Celsius times 9/5 plus 32. And please keep in mind that the order of operations do apply. So Python will first multiply and then add. And of course, if you aren't sure, then you can always just add parentheses to make sure that the order of operations in brackets will happen first. So now what we're going to do is we're going to run this script or simply execute this calculation so that we see what is the value of this T_F variable. So to do this, all you need to simply do is click on this green play button up here to run the file. So when I click this here, the first item that you may notice is that the first line has been executed in our console. So we see that the file has run, and then we're on to a new line where we can also just type something in here to simply run a calculation. And the second item that you'll note is that we now have two new variables in our variable explorer. And so we'll see that 20 degrees Celsius, so the value of 20 linked to this T_C variable, equals 68 degrees Fahrenheit. So we see a value of 68, which is a type float, so a numeric value with decimal places, linked to our T_F variable. The last item that we're going to do is we're going to simply print a message letting us know that 20 degrees Celsius equals 68 degrees Fahrenheit to get a bit more used to the print function. So as you can remember from our last video, to display a message here in our command window, all you have to do is type print. And then you can type in your message. So if I were simply to print hi and run this, then we'll see once the file is run, we'll see the message hi here below. But of course we'd like it to be a more meaningful message. So I'll start typing that 20 degrees Celsius equals 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Since our value of 20 is an integer and we're printing a message, what we have to do is convert this numeric value into a string type. Otherwise, we'll get an error. So this is an important rule that you have to keep in mind. So what we'll do to convert from a numeric value to a string is simply type str for string, and then we'll refer to our variable in degrees Celsius. And then I'll just add another part of my message. So I'd like to say that 20 space degrees Celsius equals, and then I'll add the 68 degrees Fahrenheit. And again, the 68 needs to be converted from an integer to a string. So I can just show this once more here. Here we have our t_c, which is an integer value. And to convert this to a string, what I could do is I could define some random variable a and say a equals string of t_c. If I type this, what you'll see is that our variable a now also equals a value of 20, but this is a type string, so string refers to it being only considered as text. So we can't add with this value, unless we of course convert it back to a numeric value. So this was a short distraction from our message. So 20 degrees Celsius equals string t_f degrees Fahrenheit. Perfect. So now when we hit the run button again, before we hit the run button, this is important to point out. What we see is that we have an X before line 12. It says invalid syntax, so it means that I have an error in this line of code. And what we can see is that I have forgotten to include the plus to link all of these strings together to form one line of text. So if we just go back, whenever you see a red X, always look at your line of code to see if there's something going on. So if you may have made a mistake. So we'll just add the plus, which I had forgotten. We'll hit run. And so now we'll see that 20 degrees Celsius equals 68 degrees Fahrenheit. So for fun, I can just change now this temperature to be whatever I want. So now we have 30 degrees, and we find out 30 degrees Celsius equals 86 degrees Fahrenheit. There's one last item I'd like to note. What happens if we do have an error, like we forgot this plus symbol here, and we didn't notice this red X? Well, if we hit run, we're going to see some red text saying syntax error. But don't panic if you see this. So this is completely normal. We all make mistakes. They can be easily fixed. All you have to do is look at what's being printed and look at where is it referring to the error. At what line is it referring to this error? So here we can see that when we try to run the file, so it's referring to this file here, we have an error on line 12. And if we look at the red text, we're even getting a hint. We see this little arrow here pointing to this area, pinpointing that we forgot the plus symbol. So this can be really, really helpful in locating your errors quickly. So often what I do is when I program, as I write my scripts and they become larger and larger, I continuously run the files to eliminate any errors. So if we go back and run the file, we see that everything's good again. So this wraps up today's tutorial. If you would like more exercises, please continue following along in our Introduction to Python playlist and check out our website, stem-tutorials.com. Finally, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, please hit like and subscribe below. Thanks for watching.